The Great Famine of China, 1959 to 1961. The political disaster that killed millions. Between 1959 and 1961, the People's Republic of China endured the deadliest famine in recorded human history. Known euphemistically within China as the 3 years of natural disasters, the catastrophe was, in reality, overwhelmingly man-made. Driven by the disastrous policies of the Great Leap Forward under Mao Zedong, the famine led to the estimated excess deaths of 20 million to 45 million rural Chinese, shattering families, decimating the agricultural economy, and exposing the fatal consequences of extreme centralized planning. The Ideological Engine, the Great Leap Forward. The famine was a direct result of Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward, 1958-1962, an ambitious campaign intended to rapidly transform China from an agrarian society into an industrialized communist state. The core strategy involved abolishing private land ownership and establishing massive people's communes. Mao, dismissive of technical experts and economic principles, sought to defy conventional development timeframes by substituting mass labor mobilization for technological investment. The two fatal diversions. The push for industrialization critically undermined the agricultural system. First, tens of millions of peasants, mostly men, were diverted from working the fields to join infrastructure projects or backyard steel production efforts. This frenzied enterprise produced largely useless, low-quality pig iron and left the forced agricultural labor force dependent on women, children, and the elderly. Second, irrational farming techniques, such as the widely imposed method of close planting, were decreed by the central government, leading to catastrophic and widespread crop failure, even in traditionally fertile regions. The lies and over-procurement. The starvation was exacerbated by a rigid, centrally planned food procurement system. Local officials, terrified of being denounced as conservative rightists for failing to meet Mao's unrealistic production goals, wildly falsified grain output figures. The central government then collected these non-existent surpluses from rural areas. This political dishonesty meant that food was often forcibly procured from regions that had, in fact, experienced production drops, leaving local populations to starve, sometimes right at the doors of full-grain warehouses, as occurred during the devastating Xinyang incident. The paradox of food availability. Historical analysis reveals a tragic paradox. Aggregate food production in China during the famine years was statistically sufficient to avert mass starvation. The true cause of the mass mortality was not necessarily the total amount of food, but the inflexibility and inequality of the central procurement policy. In many cases, the death rates were surprisingly higher in places that typically produced more food per capita, demonstrating that the political system was the primary determinant of who lived and who died. Trauma and the long-term legacy. The famine, which also led to approximately 30 million lost or postponed births, caused intergenerational trauma. Today, it remains a heavily censored and euphemistically termed topic in China. However, scholarly research has found that the trauma of famine exposure caused long-term reductions in educational attainment and created lasting political distrust among those who lived through the period, fundamentally shaping their perception of government performance and efficiency. Conclusion. The Great Chinese Famine stands as a colossal warning of the devastation that can be wrought when ideology, political ambition, and economic central planning trump human welfare. It remains the most potent example of a disaster where the human cost was primarily determined by political decision-making. If you enjoyed this deep dive, follow and subscribe the channel for more videos like this.